Hi guys, I'm Laura Vitale, and on this episode of Laura in the Kitchen, I'm going to share with you one of my favorite all-time favorite childhood classics. It's escarole soup with itty bitty little meatballs. Now, this is such an Italian classic that I grew up eating and I absolutely love, so I'm really thrilled to share with you. I've gotten a lot of people requesting this lately, and it gets me like all fuzzy because it's just such a childhood classic for me. So let's go over the ingredients, which are just very few and very basic. What I have here is a mixture of ground beef, pork, and veal. You could certainly use all veal or all beef or all pork if you want to. I've got some fresh breadcrumbs here, some cannellini beans that I have just drained. It's just a can of cannellini beans. I also have some parsley, an egg, a little bit of milk, some garlic, lots of parmigiano, salt and pepper. You'll also need some fresh escarole that I have washed it really well, and then I just chopped it into bite-sized pieces, and some stock. I'm using chicken stock, but you can use veal stock or even beef stock if you wanted. What I have here is like a large soup pot with a little bit of olive oil, and to that I'm going to add my garlic. I'm just going to take my garlic and slice it pretty thinly. Now, growing up, when my nonna used to make this, sometimes she'd add meatballs, sometimes not. And when she did add the meatballs, she would add all veal. She wouldn't do a mixture. I do a mixture because I like the flavor of the beef, I like the flavor that it contributes to the soup. It just gives it a little bit more of a heartier flavor, but you could use all beef or all veal if you preferred. And then I just like to use a little bit of pork because the added fat really kind of keeps the meatballs really moist and gives lots of flavor to the soup. By all means, you can use whatever your heart desires. So that's going to go in with the meatballs. I've got my mixture in here. I'm going to take some parsley and I'm going to just chop this pretty fine because I'm going to add that right to my meatball mixture. That's good enough. I'm going to add that to that. Let me just check on my garlic really quickly. This is looking really good. It's smelling really fragrant. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add my cannellini beans and my stock. It's heavy. And you know that for me, I've been using water with my chicken base here, or beef base, or depending on what I'm using. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait for that to come up to a boil. But in the meantime, we are going to finish up our meatballs. It's a meatball. I'm going to add an egg. I'm also going to add just a small splash of milk. And the reason why I add milk is because my nonna does as well. And it keeps the meatballs incredibly tender and moist. And then I have some fresh breadcrumbs here that I just took a couple of slices of stale Italian bread and pulsed them finely in my food processor. Salt and pepper, and then lots of freshly grated Parmigiano. Now, if you have a piece of rind from the Parmigiano, you would want to add this to your soup. I don't have one, but the flavor from the Parmesan that I'm going to put in the meatballs, it's going to completely infuse into the soup, so I have no fear that it's going to come out delicious. I'm just going to grate about, let's say, a quarter cup to this, my Parmigiano to my meatballs, but you could use as much or as little as you want. But I find that if you're using really good quality, you don't need to add a ton of it because the flavor really shines through. And then just using your clean hands, which are honestly a cook's best tool, I'm just going to mix everything together. You don't want to overwork your meatballs. You want to work them as little as possible just because you really want to keep those meatballs really nice and tender. So I'm just going to mix until everything's pretty well incorporated, and then we are going to start, I shouldn't say we, I am going to start rolling out itty bitty teeny tiny little meatballs, or I should say as little as my patience will allow me to get here. So that's looking good. I'm going to take, should really be a lot smaller than that, but I'll be here for the next 6 hours. I'm just going to take about that much and roll them and put them right on a little plate, or a big plate. And got my little meatballs ready. My stock here is up to a nice rolling boil. And be very careful when you drop these in. I don't want you to get burned because the stock is really hot. So I'm just going to drop in all my little meatballs, and then we'll be ready to drop in the escarole as well. All my meatballs are in, and now you can go ahead and add in your washed escarole, or escarole as we call it at our house. I love escarole. I love it with tuna fish and black olives and hot peppers. That's like a classic tuna salad that we ate as kids. So good, so good. In fact, it's till this day, it's like one of my favorite like go-tos whenever I have some escarole left over from when I make soup or something. Oh, and escarole pizza, which I have to show you a recipe one day. It's like a stuffed pizza with escarole, and just my mother always has it ready for us when we go to Italy because it's one of my favorite things of all time, and she makes it so good. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to let this cook for about 15 minutes. That's all this is going to need. So let this bubble away, let it cook nice and about medium-high heat, 15 minutes, and you are on your way to a fabulous, quick, and delicious dinner. Its soup's been bubbling away for about 10 minutes now, well, 15 minutes really, and now it is done. I'm going to adjust it for seasoning, lots and lots of black pepper and some salt, because I didn't add any salt to this. You do want to be careful using salt because if you're using store-bought chicken stock or chicken base, as I am, then things are going to be already salty. Now, if you had added the Parmesan rind to this, then you wouldn't need to add any cheese on top of it. But I like to add a good grating of Parmesan at the very end, stir it all in. It really ties the whole thing together and it makes it kind of perfect. I like mine on the more soupy side, as you could call it. If you want yours to be thicker, then just don't use as much liquid as I did. But this for me is perfect. And if you wanted to, you could add some pastina to this, but traditionally, with escarole soup, you don't. It's just escarole, beans, and occasionally meatballs, depending on how someone feels about rolling out little tiny meatballs. That's the truth, I think anyway. I'm going to serve that to myself. Oh. It smells so good. It's like my childhood in a little bowl. How cute is that? Look at those little meatballs. I'm going to just go right in. They're going to be really lovely and tender. Let's give this a try. I need a little bit of little piece of escarole. Now, my nonna would never add the garlic chopped because my uncles don't like biting down on garlic. So she would put in a whole clove of garlic, saute it, and then once the soup is done, fish it out. So nobody would bite on it, but we love garlic around here, so I just chop it. It is so perfect. It is so simple. Home food, comforting, warm, good for you. It's absolutely delicious. And like I said, you could really play this up according to what you like, but this is, in my family, is a traditional way that we make it. So that's how I wanted to show it with you today. But again, a handful of pastina, maybe even some rice would be delicious, but this is it for me. I hope you enjoyed spending time with me, and if your family makes a version of this, I would love to know down below what it is that you put in it, because I'm always looking for different variations, and I love hearing different parts of Italy, even in different households, how you like to make things. It's very fun to read what everybody else likes to do. Go to laurainthekitchen.com and get this recipe. I hope you've enjoyed spending time with me, guys, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.